Should you be using campaign budget optimization or Adset budget optimization in your Facebook ads? i.e., should you be using CBO or ABO? The answer to this one is clear cut. You should be using campaign budget optimization, as there's only one or two situations where you would be justifiably better using Adset budget optimization. So in order to understand why campaign budget optimization is better most of the time, and when you might want to use Adset budget optimization, we need to dive further into what exactly are the differences between the two. So let's jump on the computer and have a look at that now. So we see here that Facebook campaigns have a hierarchical structure of campaigns, ad sets, and ads. And the difference between a CBO campaign or an ABO campaign is essentially at what level in that structure are you setting the budget. So in a CBO campaign, you're setting the budget at the campaign level and allowing Facebook the freedom to automatically distribute that budget down amongst the ad sets, and then again automatically distribute it down amongst the ads within those ad sets. In an ABO campaign, however, the campaign just acts as a shell and you're setting the budget manually at the ad set level. And then what Facebook's going to do is automatically distribute that budget down amongst the ads only. So rather than doing it across the whole thing, ad sets and then ads, in an ABO campaign, we're setting at each ad whatever we want, and then Facebook automatically distributing it down amongst the ads. So if we look into Ads Manager, you can see that you have the campaign, you have the ad set, and you have the ads. In a CBO example, we would be setting the budget here. So they now call it Advantage Campaign Budget. It's just a rebrand. This is the CBO section. If I flick this on, this is now a CBO campaign. I can set whatever budget I want here. And if I go into the ad set and come to the budget, you'll see there's no control here. Facebook is automatically determining what budget it is setting. The only control you do have is you can add a spend limit, so don't spend any more than or spend a minimum amount. But Facebook is determining where it distributes the budget. And in the ABO version, you would have this turned off. Let's turn that off. And now when we come to the ad set, you can see that I can determine what budget I want to put for this ad set. If I had multiple ad sets, I can put different budgets in each of those ad sets, or I could have the same budget, whatever I want to do. But there's a couple of things that you need to keep in mind. So in a CBO campaign, the budget is not distributed equally amongst the ad sets, and it's going to be distributing it in real time. So if you have a certain budget going to a certain ad set 1 month, it might not necessarily be the same budget the next month, and even smaller than that, the next day, the next hour, whatever, okay? So let's look at that as an example. Let's say as an advertiser, I am given $60 to spend on a new campaign. If I choose a CBO campaign structure, I'm going to set that $60 budget at the campaign level, and Facebook's going to automatically determine how it sees fit to distribute that budget amongst my ad sets. So you can see here, obviously ad set 2 is doing better. Facebook's decided to give it more proportion of the budget. Ad set 1's not doing well, so it's got a much lower proportion of the budget. And then ad set 3 is somewhere in the middle. That's Facebook controlling that. I don't have any control over that. And then within each of those, Facebook's also going to further segment the budget. So I have $10 budget in ad set 1. Facebook determines we're going to give equal amounts to ad 1 and 2, and we're going to give less to ad 3 because it's obviously not performing as well. The next ad set, we have a much higher budget, but Facebook's changed the proportion slightly. So now it's giving more budget to ad 1, slightly less to ad 2, but still quite a lot, and it's not giving any to ad 3, and then so on and so forth for the third one, okay? Facebook gets to determine how it spreads the budget between each level, and that's going to be changing in real time depending on how performance is. So you could have a situation where the next day ad set 4 has $60 and these two have zero. Unlikely, but that's what can be happening. Facebook's determining where can I get the best result for this advertiser. You're letting the machine do the work. In an A/B scenario, let's say I had the same $60 budget. If this is a new campaign, I'm not going to have any data. So I have no benchmark to base my budgets on. And in that case, I'm probably going to start the campaign with equal budget distribution amongst the ad sets. And as we start to get some data back, I will then manually tweak them. So we have our $60 budget, 3 ad sets, that's going to be $20 each. That is me manually setting that, okay? The only bit Facebook's going to do is go, well, let's look at this $20 budget I have. And Facebook's going to automatically determine what ad is performing best, where am I going to distribute this budget, okay? So it's chosen ad 1 and 2 are the same performance, let's give it equal budget. Ad 3 is not doing as well, let's give it less, similar to the first scenario. The second one, it's going to determine ad 1 is doing better, let's give it more. Ad 2 is not doing as well, let's give it a little bit less. And ad 3 is doing terrible, let's give it 0. Okay, so this is just the same setup, this is complete theoretical, but it just shows you, like Facebook is determining at this level here, but that's the only place it can control, versus this one where Facebook can determine every single place where it's going to distribute your budget. So if the difference between the two is only where you're setting the budget, at what level you're setting the budget, why is CBO then better than ABO? Well, the reason is that ABO has some inherent flaws, which we're now going to take a look at. So you can see here that I've listed out the problems of ABO, but I think the best way of demonstrating this is to think of Facebook advertising as fishing in the ocean, whereas the ocean would be, anywhere, the location you're advertising in, you would have different interests that you could target. So there'd be different areas of the ocean, and you would have fish in the ocean, which are your ideal customers. So in our campaign structure, we're going to have a campaign running, and that campaign is going to have ad sets, and each of those ad sets is going to be represented by a boat. If the boat is bigger, it means there's a bigger budget. If the boat is smaller, it means there's a smaller budget. And each of those boats is going to have ads, which would be your nets to catch the fish. So you're catching the fish with your ads, and you're controlling your budget and your audience at the ad set level or the boat. Okay, so hope this doesn't get too confusing, but I think this visual really, really does help explain this situation. So the problem with an ABO campaign is, first of all, you're spreading your budget too thin, trying to find what works. And also you're not able to optimize in real time. So you're going to be wasting budget trying to optimize. So look at the situation. We have an ABO campaign scenario here, and each of these boats has the same budget, has the same $20 from my previous example, even distribution. Interest 1, where the first ad set is, has lots of fish. So it's going to max out the budget. It's really making the most of that budget. Interest 2, we've started the ad set and it's landed in a place where there are some fish. So it's going to do all right for now. But ad set 3 has landed in a place in lookalike where there's no fish. So we're just spending money for the first couple of days waiting for a result. And you're just burning that money. Facebook can't automatically go, oh, there's no fish here, let me reduce the budget until I find more fish, and let me increase the budget here because there's lots of fish. You as an advertiser would have to do that manually. But that in itself brings some problems. Your manual intervention brings some problems. So we have all these running. Okay, let's take interest 2 as the example to explain this problem. So your learnings in an ABO campaign are kept at the ad set level. That's where the budget is. If you relaunch it, it has to go back out into the learning phase. So if I have the boat here, and let's say over time, I'm scaling this up because there's fish, but I reach a point where I've exhausted this part of the audience. All these fish have seen my ads. They don't want to buy. I'm not catching any more of my nets. Facebook's then going to start moving this ship out to go and try and find some more fish. But what's going to be happening is the time it's taking to do that, my performance is going to drop. So me as a a media buyer, I'm going to be watching that performance, and I'm going to do one of two things. I might reduce the budget manually and go, hang on, this is not performing at the moment. Let me just reduce the budget and leave it running to see if Facebook can come and find some more people, at which point I would scale it back up. Or I'm going to completely pause that ad set. I'm going to duplicate it and I'm going to rerun it. So let me just put that back quickly to show that example. So yeah, so I've scaled it up. It's moved out. I'm not finding anyone. I'm going to pause it and duplicate it. And then I'm going to launch the duplicate. In the best case scenario, it's going to start from here once I launch that duplicated ad set. Okay, and you're going to get instant results. Happy days, you've hit the jackpot. But what if it lands over here? You're going to have the same situation where you are not getting any results for the first couple of days. Now, of course, Facebook's going to try and go out and find the fish. But like I said, we don't have the learnings that we had from the previous ad set. If this was the previous ad set and I just turned it off and turned it on again, it knows that we've already exhausted all the fish here. My journey was to come over here and try and find more fish. But in the duplicated one, the learnings are at the ad set level. We have to start again. We have to go back into the learning phase. It does not know that we've already come over here. So sure, you might have the situation where it decides to come down here and after a couple of days you find the audience and 3 days time you're like, right, we're starting to do well, let's scale up. But in that same time, those 3 days there, you might start heading down here, not getting results, and then end up here where there's no fish anymore and you're not doing well, okay? So that is the flaw of ABO. You lose any learnings that you had by duplicating and refreshing, but that is a necessary evil. You have to be able to do that if you're using an ABO structure if you want to get performance continued, and that's why a media buyer will be intervening there. But the other problem is that there is a short lifespan of an ad set, and an ABO is relying on the use of ad sets to scale. So let's say I have this example where this one has got plenty of fish, it's doing well, I'm scaling it to the moon, I'm just getting all these fish. I'm going to have to be constantly refreshing my ads within that ad set because the ad set learnings will continue. The audience, the interest is a big audience, but the ads are going to be fatiguing. People will have seen the ad too many times. We might have caught all the low-hanging fruit with a certain ad, and now we need to use a different ad to try and get people who are not as invested. And that's going to bring some problems once we reach a certain length of time where we have 50 ads in the ad set because you have a capacity limit. So once I reach to the point where I've scaled this up and I've now used 50 ads, it might be like 3 months down the line. To continue running this, once I start to fatigue how it is at the moment, I have to pause this, duplicate it and relaunch because I can't get any fresh creative into the ad set. So the performance is going to go down anyway. But what happens when I do that is I might take this out because I paused it, duplicate it, refresh it, relaunch with that big fat budget, and it's going to land here in this empty part of the interest. Now, it's not too much of a problem. Maybe in a couple of days, it's going to come and find these fish again. But I've now launched it in a place where there's no fish. I've lost the learning. I've lost the ability to know that, hang on, you need to be over here. And these ads you've used so far have already exhausted the audience here, okay? We don't know that in an ABO campaign. We're doing this all manual. We're always leaving it to chance. So let's put that back and look at the contrast of a CBO campaign. And this is where you see the difference, even if that didn't make too much sense. When you have a CBO campaign, it looks more like something like this. The CBO campaign is going to distribute your budget optimally always. Like I said earlier, one day to the next. If things change, it is going to move the budgets up and down between the different ad sets based on what it is seeing within its machine learning. Okay, so let's look at that here. So we have launched this new campaign. We're early days, but Facebook very, very quickly, real time, goes, hang on, there's tons of fish here. I'm doing really well. Let me scale up my budget in this area. Let me scale it down here, and this should be over here. I can have a medium budget in this scenario, okay? Which is great, exactly what it wants to do. If we start to exhaust this audience, all that's going to happen is Facebook's going to bring the size of the budget right down. You know, we're not going to pause it. We're just going to leave it running until it reaches over here, and then Facebook's going to scale it back up automatically. We may want to intervene as a media buyer if it's running around here for too long, and it is still getting spent, but more often than not, the budget's going to be brought to minuscule here, and you can just leave it running and allow Facebook to, you know, just put all the proportion of the budget there, and then eventually it's going to reach here and scale up. Okay, so let's put that back. But it also has the benefit of it reduces audience overlap. So in the scenario when we're using an Adset budget optimization, you could have a situation, and let me show you on this one to make it make sense. You could have a situation where, you know, your boats come over here and it's fishing in this pool of the ocean. But also this one has maybe been flowing around and come over here too. And is also, because there's a bit of crisscross in the audience, it's also fishing in this part of the ocean. So what's happening is you're using a big fat budget to fish in the same pool of people. That is not efficient. You're competing against yourself. If we go back to the CBO version though, this big boat's going to come over here, okay, start fishing in this part of the ocean. If this little boat came over here and started trying to fish here, all that Facebook's going to do is go, hang on, we're already catching it with this. I have full control of the budgets between the different ad sets. I'm going to scale that budget right down, so I'm not doing the same thing twice. I'm not competing against myself. And then also, because I have full control, I'm going to start moving this boat over somewhere else, which would happen in the other situation as well, of course. But I'm going to move it somewhere else because we're competing with myself. And then I'm going to automatically, as soon as I find those people, scale up in real time. I don't have to rely on me manually checking the data and doing it. So it's way more efficient. And not just that, we talked about the learnings earlier being at the ad set level. Well, the benefit of using a CBO campaign is your learnings are going to be up there at the campaign level. And within a campaign, you have the ability to have 5,000 ad sets. So not just 50 ads, you have 5,000 ad sets, and each of those ad sets has 50 ads. But because the learning is at the campaign level, if we duplicate and relaunch an ad set, it's not going to go back into learning. So let's say I have this one, you know, I've come down, I'm moving over here, I've reached my 50 ad, I've scaled up, reached my 50 ad limit. I can pause it, duplicate it, and relaunch it. It might not necessarily land here, but if it lands over here, I have all that learning previously. Facebook's going to go, let's bring it down. I know where the fish are because I was fishing in them earlier. Let's bring you over here again and scale you up, okay? That is the benefit of CBO, which you do not get with ABO. ABO is like trying to win the lottery. You're just leaving it up to chance. CBO is a process. The machine is controlling what it's doing. It knows it knows in real time everything that's happening. You're not leaving it up to chance. And the final benefit is it just makes your campaign structure simpler. You know, if I don't have to go in and tweak the budgets up and down every day, balancing act, trying to make sure the overall comes to a certain figure, I'm just leaving up to Facebook to do that. It's way more stable, yes, but it's also just way less work for me. I don't have to use so much of that manual work. And as anyone knows, whenever you bring manual work into anything, there's more mistakes, it's less efficient, the machine can do better. It has these millions of data points that we don't know, we can't see them, okay? So that is, in a nutshell, why CBO is better. But I mentioned earlier that there is the odd situation where you could justifiably say ABO is best to use. And what would that be? So let's look at the final slide. When to use ABO? Well, you only really want to use ABO, justifiably better, when data is more important than your performance, i.e. you're happy to sacrifice the campaign learning and the long-term performance because you're getting a particular insight. You're testing something that you want to be able to control the budget, you want to be able to control the frequency. And then I'm going to say one more thing. Some people prefer to use ABO for testing, but this itself has disadvantages. So I'm not going to cover the disadvantages in this video. What I will do is do it at some point. So it's going to be linked up somewhere in this video or in the description when I've created it. But yeah, a lot of people like to use a CBO campaign for scaling and an ABO campaign for testing, so they can put a defined budget aside for testing and put the same budget through every creative. So in theory, they have an equal chance. The problem with that is your learning, like I said before, is at the campaign level. So even though you're testing different creatives, they're not getting tested in a fair space because you lose the learnings. You're being cast out to a different area of the ocean for each test. You know, it could be here, it could be here, it could be here. So if a creative starts doing well here, it's just found a good bit of the ocean. It doesn't necessarily mean that creative is good. It might be good, it might not. You don't know 100%. That's why it's better doing it in a CBO campaign. But that's generally when the budgets are higher. Like I said, I maybe touched on it a bit. I didn't want to, but I will do a full video explaining that and setting it out. This one is really just to explain the difference between CBO and ABO, and that is it really. So the only situation you'd want to use ABO is if you're trying to test something specifically and you don't mind sacrificing performance. Every other situation, leave it to CBO. Even if you're seeing better performance in ABO, it is just temporary. Let the machine do its learning. ABO in the long run is going to perform better for your business. So that is it from me. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you have enjoyed the video and you've come away understanding not just that you should be using CBO campaigns, but why you should be using CBO campaigns. Because the nature of Facebook ads and the platform is that it changes so much, and if you don't understand the why behind something, often what you'll find is the platform will change and you'll still be doing something that doesn't make sense to do because you never knew why you were originally doing it. So that's what I want to do. I want to give you the information to understand why you should do something so that you're able to adapt whenever inevitably the platform changes, essentially making you a better media buyer, getting more money for your business if you're running your business, making more money for your clients, getting better testimonials, all that good stuff. So if you enjoyed this video and you're learning, you like my style, definitely check out my channel, watch some more of the videos. I'm going to keep them really, really value packed, nothing high level and just nice to have stuff that's going to stuff that you're going to watch and come away with tangible learnings, tangible skills, and make you a better Facebook media buyer. Okay. Thanks very much for watching, guys, again, and see you in another video very, very soon.